Hi, everyone. I'm Dave.
And I'm Robert.
Welcome to our Chipola fifth quarter podcast. We're so thankful and excited to be sharing this podcast with you from the main campus at Chipola College here in Marianna, Florida. Chipola offers so many opportunities for all of us, students, those in the community, staff, faculty on campus. Robert and I get a chance to collaborate and do this cool podcast. Today and recently we've been looking at planning leadership best practices and how those apply from the football field and even in the workplace. And it seems like good leaders, good teamwork can really make a difference. So we have some exciting stuff to get us going. And Robert, why don't you kick it off, sir?
Let's talk about the 2021 recruiting class. Signing day is pretty much wrapping up. FSU finishes with a top 25 recruiting class. That's something to hang their hat on.
Top 25.
Yeah, top 25 recruiting class. Alabama obviously topped it at number one. As a matter of fact, they have surpassed the 2010 Florida Gator team in their signing class this year.
2010 Gators, was that like the Tebow era?
Yeah, that was definitely the Tebow era.
Yeah.
Tebow come in as a freshman. I want to say he was a redshirt. 06, that's when Chris Leak was a starter at Florida. They go to a national championship against Ohio State. 07 finished it off with a bowl game win against, I believe it was Michigan, and then followed back up the 08 season with another national championship win against Oklahoma. Tried to repeat that success because Tebow could have declared for the draft. He had a lot of scout eyes looking at him after that 09 season, but he decided to come back and try to finish the deal, and that's when the Nick Saban Alabama dynasty started. Knocked him off in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. Nick Saban goes on to win his first national title with the Crimson Tide.
And we've been on that same run ever since.
Pretty much. I mean, that's what it seems to be. There's a trend when it comes to Nick Saban. Alabama wins their sixth national title as a team since Nick Saban's been at the helm. And you figure, at what point do these guys start slowing down? Nick Saban, there is no slowdown. I do believe that he will be one of those ones that when he's done coaching, it'll probably be time for him to go on to the great spirit in the skies.
Yeah, head to the house.
Yeah, head to the house, so to speak.
So how many did the great Bear have, Bear Bryant at Alabama?
I lost track. I know when the Bear come to, from what I've studied, obviously that was well before my time, decades. When he come to the University of Alabama, I mean, he transformed it from the inside out, turned them into winners. But he ran a lot of his practices like boot camps, which is what made him interesting, because those kind of coaching methods will not cut it today.
Right, you really have to be focused on the player and where they fit, where they're at in life, and kind of build all those connections. And as you can see, it's a full-time job. They have a staff of people who help with every aspect of that. I think Nick just passed Bear on how many titles he has now at Alabama, right?
Right, I wouldn't be surprised of that. The Bear didn't coach very long. He had a stint at Kentucky, Texas A&M, and then he settled down in Alabama. So
something I was surprised, not to stay too far back in time here for very long, but Joe Namath, one of the best ever. I think he played at Bama when the Bear was coaching. Was that? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Won a Heisman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what a run that was.
Oh, yeah. And you got to figure the game has evolved tremendously since then. Back then it was mostly about stuff like the wishbone offense. I remember studying a time of, where it was, I believe it was the 70s, I don't want to get this wrong. And the Bear was looking at switching up the offense, and that's when they were going to do a season opener against USC, I believe it was. And so
that's not the Gamecocks, probably.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the University.
The Trojans.
University of Southern California. He was getting ready to switch up the whole offense, and he wanted to run a new style called the wishbone. It was something he had never really seen before, and he kept it a secret from everybody. Comes out, dominates the game against USC, and that's when he really changed up his style of play. Nowadays in the league, you fast forward 40-something years later, the NFL offenses are mainly spread. College offenses are mainly becoming like shotgun spread, five wide, stuff like that, as opposed to back in the day. Even when I was a kid, I remember a lot of NFL offenses and college offenses running the power I. I'm kind of partial to the power I because as a kid, that's what I ran in Little League. And it was right about the time I started playing varsity football in high school. About my sophomore year, we started running the flexbone offense like you see popular at Navy and Georgia Tech.
Right. What's just kind of going back to that point in a second, that wishbone is exciting. I think nowadays when they run it, they don't necessarily run it as the wishbone. They'll do the zone read. So with the wishbone, the quarterback would ride, the fullback looking at the tackle, and then you'd have the end cracking down, and there was three options there. For him to run it, the fullback and maybe even like a halfback, I guess, breaking out for a pitch. So now they do the zone read, which is even, wow, it's like that on steroids, where you just look at that person in that zone, and you get a pass option out of that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of neat thinking back to the early days of the wishbone. But that was quite the offense back in the day.
Oh yeah, back in the day it was, and that's why Alabama's had the success that they have. And just to kind of segue into another team, Bobby Bowden, the Bear was his favorite coach, and he kind of idolized him for most of his coaching career. And what made Bobby so interesting is they called him the Riverboat Gambler. So he was not afraid to switch up his offense. He was not afraid to go for it on like 4th and 2, 4th and 3. You remember the fumble Rooski, and I believe it was in the '80s against Clemson. Leroy Butler, I'm talking about runs it back, man. Bobby's been one of those coaches that he will strategically find a way to win when his back's against the wall.
We miss those days.
Oh, I do. But you can't hang on to the past.
Future's bright.
Right, absolutely. I would say that the future's bright.
And that's what you're highlighting, right? Top 25 recruiting class.
Yes. Norville's got something to hang his hat on, finishing the 2021 class in top 25. I believe the highlight signing, according to ESPN.com, was Destin Hill. He was our top signing out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Matter of fact, he was a part of ESPN's top 300 recruits in the nation. So wow. he was on the national stage as far as being watched. We signed Amarian Cooper, another cornerback, Hunter Washington, another cornerback, Chambray Jackson at defensive end, Malik McLean at wide receiver, Rod Orr at offensive tackle. Those that I just mentioned were a part of ESPN's top 300 recruits nationally watched. And then, of course, Kobe Gross. He was a transfer from Virginia College out of Danville, California. He was also on ESPN's top 50, I believe.
Wow, that is good. So Dustin Hill, is he quarterback or is he a cornerback?
Wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Okay,
yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I believe he's going to be something special. As far as the quarterback position, I think we're pretty much set. We got Mackenzie Milton out of UCF. He was a transfer. I don't want to say that you want to build your offense around him if I'm Norvell. But what I would do is, get me a young quarterback, start working with him. I'm sure we got some depth on the bench. We got plenty of decent quarterbacks, and that's one of the things that FSU's been so great at. Is in previous times, we've been good at recruiting quarterbacks and wide receivers.
So FSU is on a path for success. We have a foundation where really the next step is only up, right? So there's some good options in front of them. And besides that, I guess football's kind of quiet, right? I mean, what do you got? You got any plans this weekend?
Oh yeah, I'll be watching the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, the home team, very cool.
Yeah, you can bet. As we talked about in the last episode, it's going to be a matchup. I don't expect this game to be lackluster. I expect it to be honest with you, I expect it to be tight, or it could be a shootout. It just depends on which team comes ready to play in the first half. The first half will tell the tale. You got Tom Brady.
It's tough though. Mahomes doesn't mind going down, so it's almost the start of the second half. I guess if they get up, if the Bucs are up a lot, that could be hard.
Well, it could. It could affect your psyche. But here's something to consider. When Kansas City played last year's Super Bowl against the 49ers, I believe they entered into the third or fourth quarter down 10 points, 14 points, and they found a way to rally back and get the win. So don't count Mahomes out in the second half. Obviously, the keys to the game are going to be Tom Brady cannot throw any interceptions. He's going to have to be laser focused. If downfield is covered and your corners and safeties are playing zone coverage, then what I would suggest is, and I know Tom will do this, he's notorious for taking the short throws. See, that's playing smart football. Is if downfield is not open, then what you want to do is take what the defense gives you. So what that you get a 5-yard pass here, a 3-yard pass here, you're still moving the ball forward.
The Chiefs are going to know that too, so a lot of times he's going to have to probably even just eat the ball or throw it out of bounds.
Well,
have to punt.
Well, do you remember the very first episode that we done? I believe it was in September of last year. I said football's like human chess. You've got your players are obviously your pawns and rooks, all that stuff on the chessboard. You've got to find a way to make the moves. You got to be one step ahead of your defense. And this just kind of connecting. That was something Bobby Bowden was good at. Is he could almost draw out a play and tell you what the defense was going to do ahead of time. And Bruce Arians, 60, 70 years old, no stranger to the league. He's come up rough in the trenches and then worked his way up the coaching ladder and been a part of numerous teams. I think him and his staff down there at Tampa will find a way to outmaneuver the Kansas City Chiefs because they don't have a defense to the level of Tampa Bay's defense. Now, we got the defense. Kansas City has the offense. That's where the matchup is. But Tom Brady, he's notorious for studying film. He's notorious for, he's going to give it his best shot and make sure that the defense knows, hey, if you're going to stop me, it's going to take everything you got.
And I think Gronk's pretty focused as well. I mean, he's going to be ready for another run. He has at least one ring, maybe 2 rings. He has a couple rings, right, Gronk?
Oh yeah, he's definitely got more than 2. He was with, Brady at the Patriots, and they were kind of a dynamic duo. And now you see them back together at Tampa Bay. It's going to be difficult, if the Bucs end up winning this Super Bowl, which I think they stand a very good chance with Brady at the helm. I saw something the other day where some analysts at ESPN and Good Morning Football shows like that were making the comment, Brady may be getting too much credit for the Bucs' success, but here's what I want to say. This time last year, we were licking our wounds finishing off a 7-9 season. Brady comes to town, gets a couple more players to come with him, Gronk, Antonio Brown, LaShawn McCoy, who played with the Chiefs last year in their Super Bowl, because a lot of people signed with them with Tampa because they just wanted to come play with Brady. So, for those people that'll say, well, I hate Tom Brady, this, that, and the other, and the NFL's rigged towards him, here's what I want to say. How can you sit there and say that Brady's getting too much credit for the success when last year at the helm of Jameis Winston they finished 7-9? Winston goes on to the Saints. Brady comes to town. It's his team, and we finished regular season 11-5, NFC Championship, 3 on the road playoff wins, and now we're fixing to contend for a Super Bowl. And they had all these weapons last year. So Brady comes to town, everything changes. How can you sit there and say, how can you give him enough credit is my thing.
Right, at least you could say Brady's demonstrating that great leadership ability to know your team, know your players with you, say on the football field, and he's not hurting the team. He's not throwing a lot of picks. He has thrown a couple more than normal, but he's not a detriment. He's not an albatross to the team. So he's leading by letting the others succeed. He's keeping them focused. He's helping them move down the field. They're known for their defense, which is really how you win championships, is what they say, back to Lombardi. But he's doing everything you need. He's not getting in their way. He's letting them be themselves, and he's still doing enough to keep winning games. So I'd say he's doing everything expected of him and more just by his pure leadership on the field.
Oh, absolutely, and it shows. After that NFC Championship game, see, Brady's a guy that he's not going to settle, especially if there's one more game. Most players in today's league, if you make it to a conference championship and you win it, you're thinking, man, we've arrived. And it was reported Levante David, one of our key linebackers on our defense, a very good player, by the way, said he overheard Brady on the sideline after the game saying, somebody was crying or something or was getting emotional. He looked at him and said, what are you crying for? He said, we're not done yet. So Brady is definitely playing with a chip on his shoulder. I was watching a documentary on him today. It's about the 3rd or 4th time I've watched it because he has such an amazing story. He was at Michigan, competed for that spot against Drew Henson, to start for Michigan back in the 90s. Drew Henson goes into play, and there were several times Drew Henson would literally sink the ship, and Brady'd have to come in and bail him out. And then he goes 6th round, 199 overall to the Patriots. And I believe that's why Brady has become a pupil of the game even at his age. And he continues that mindset of I'm still a student as well as a player. Studies film, keeps himself in great shape, and he's out to prove to all of the 31 teams that passed him up, hey, you made a mistake. And I think that's why when he came to Tampa, he was looking for a new challenge. He had already conquered New England. There was no question about that. His 19 seasons, what does he win, 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots?
Yeah, I think number 7 come this Monday, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that remains to be seen. He
That's
very
right.
well could because he's got some weapons around him. You got Antonio Brown, who is expected not to return next season.
He's on a 1-year deal, I think.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal.
He's got a lot of baggage, and
but you hate to see him go because he has played a small part in this offense.
He's still a performer, so he can still contribute.
Right. LaShawn McCoy is not expected to return after this season. And it just gets you to wondering, like, why would you not want to stay and help build on the success? These Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their defense reminds me a lot of that 2002 Tampa Bay defense. You remember you had guys like Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, you had Dexter Jackson and Rondé Barber, John Lynch. I mean, you had a stout defense.
And you had Chucky Gruden, right, leading the team. Yeah, they did great.
Yeah, and one key thing about it was, Tony Dungy basically built that team. I don't want to take anything away from John Gruden, but Tony Dungy put that team together.
He's a class act.
Yeah, he definitely. Yeah. And John Gruden come over from Oakland. The Raiders put his team together. Well, then, John Gruden comes into the league, joins the Tampa Bay, coaching staff, and it's like they go against the Super Bowl, with the Oakland Raiders, and it's like you've got Tony Dungy's put together Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus John Gruden's put together Oakland Raiders, and they dominated that game. That's another thing on that defense. Derek Brooks, you had some key guys on that defense in 2002, and then 2 seasons later, it's like the mismanagement. Sapp gets let go, Derek Brooks gets let go, and that '04 season was kind of special. We started out 0-4. And Chris Sims at the helm of quarterback that '04 season, he didn't do so hot. And Brian Griese, the son of Bob Griese, the Miami Dolphins quarterback back in the day, comes in and has to rescue the situation. And I think about a lot of guys from that mid-2000s era. When I was a teenager, I used to love watching Monday Night Football in that era, because you had guys at Tampa like Carnell Williams, they called him Cadillac Williams, the running back out of Auburn.
Yes, I think he had to get knee repair, and he still kept running that ball.
He will always be the what-if running back to me at Tampa. He could have had a very solid career. You had guys like Brad Johnson at quarterback, and a host of other guys. You had Michael Pittman at the running back position. You wonder what those guys could have been, and that goes into the business side of it. If a coaching staff knows what they're doing and they know how to manage properly and can keep a team together and keep them playing, I mean, that alone is worth the success that comes with it. But you got to stick together, and you got to know how to manage your players.
Yeah, so the great example back to Brady, we are fans of Brady, but just his leadership of knowing your team, knowing those key players around you and letting them do their thing. We see with the Patriots and Belichick, they kind of maybe, not put in words here, but got greedy, wanted to kind of get that salary cap, thought Brady could move on, but they could have had a run this year if they'd have kept that team in place. Gronk may have come back or may have stayed. They had some options there, so they looked at that. And then if you look at Tampa Bay, like you're talking about in the 2000s, just looking at salary cap and looking at other options out there, forgetting that they had a solid team in place. Their defense in that '02, the Super Bowl win. It's going to remind us when we see them win this Sunday. It's going to remind us of '02. That defense is going to put it down. So.
Man, I'm going to tell you talking about them guaranteed to win Sunday really makes me nervous. But I'm going to go with it because I see a lot of that in this 2020 Tampa Bay Bucks defense. The only problem is, our first 4 up front, they're pretty solid. At the linebacker core, you got Levante David, Shaq Barrett, they're really solid. But what worries me is we've got a young rookie secondary of corners and safeties. Sean Murphy Bunting and a few other guys that are real young. So if Mahomes can find the mismatch and exploit it, it's going to be a rough night for our defense in the secondary. Our hope is that the 4 men up front stay in their lanes. Ends have to spill out and contain Mahomes, and then allow Shaq Barrett and Levante David to do their thing. I don't think it's going to be a good night running the ball for Kansas City. Clyde
except for Mahomes, he might get loose.
Right,
a couple
except
times.
for Mahomes. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the Chiefs' rookie running back coming off that LSU championship team from the previous season. He's a solid running back. But when you're going up against, Vita Vea, Jason Pierre-Paul.
4 men that care.
Yeah, I might as well call them the 4 horsemen of Tampa Bay at this point. They're solid, man. That's a solid front. I don't think I've ever seen a stronger defensive line than that. And I think this Tampa Bay Bucks team this year is going to be something special. My hope is that if they, pull out the win and we can win the Super Bowl, the challenge is going to be, okay, does this team stay together, rally and run it back, as they say, and try to win another one next year?
Well, Brady did sign a 2-year deal, right? So.
Right, and there's some talk that after the second year of his contract, that Brady could very well sign with another team. I don't know that I see that happening, but there's some talk that he may sign with another team to constantly challenge himself.
I don't know if there's another need. I think if he can get a run this year and then maybe one more year, maybe they'd give him an extension, and I think that would be fine for him. Who knows? But I think he's going to be fulfilled. 7 rings? Come on. How many fingers is that?
Look at it.
7, that's a lot.
Right, it is a lot. But look at it this way. He's constantly playing with a chip on his shoulder. At first he said, he was going to play until he was 45. Now he's talking about, I don't know, I could see myself playing past 45. And in his 40s now, he had that knee injury, way back
early,
in the day.
yeah,
early.
Yeah.
But other than that, he pretty much stays healthy on the field.
He gets rid of that ball fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's been able to pride himself in a long career, is because he takes care of himself off the field. He doesn't get involved in all kinds of foolery and mischief and all that kind of stuff, but he dedicates himself to the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay ends up winning it. I say we win it by a field goal. I don't see us winning it by a touchdown. I think it's going to be very close.
Mahomes is going to not go down quietly.
No,
so.
he's definitely not going to go down quietly. There's a reason why he won last year's Super Bowl, and there's even some talk now that if Kansas City wins this Super Bowl, that they could be on the verge of building a dynasty. The Chiefs won the first Super Bowl way back in the day, late 60s. When I believe it was.
Well, I think it was Green Bay, and then the third one was Kansas City.
Okay, so I may have gotten that backwards. You remember Hank Stram was.
You are a Packers fan a little bit, I know.
Ooh,
so.
Easy. Do you got the cheese head in here somewhere?
Know, right.
But no, Hank Stram was their coach then, and he started building that dynasty with the Hunts, and
right.
And that Kansas City Chiefs team is something special. Definitely props to them on an amazing season, and Mahomes is a special guy. If he can keep himself healthy, Brady's even told him before, when he was with the Patriots, I believe it was last season or the season before, and they beat the Patriots in the AFC game. There was one game where Brady ended up topping Mahomes, and he went to the locker room after the game was over, went to the Chiefs locker room, and Brady said, "Keep your head up, you got what it takes." And so, Mahomes is definitely, I think in the coming years, he's going to be something special. I'm going to hate to see the day, though, that Brady hangs it up, because then I'm officially getting old.
Well, he might be in his 60s by then, so we'll all be old by then.
Yeah,
so.
The year is 2050.
You're right.
Brady's like 76 years old on his 12th ring.
Gets rid of that ball fast.
All right.
Well, it's going to be an exciting weekend, Robert.
Yeah. You want to predict the final score before we go?
Oh, wow. I'm not good at that. I picked the winner. You picked the score.
Ooh. Okay, if I had to pick a score, I say 34-31 Bucks.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
We called it.
Yep.
Thanks, Robert.
Yep. See you.